The testimony chamber. The Galactic Council Hall was more than a room. It was a monument to millennia of uneasy peace. Towering pillars of polished obsidian reached upward into a domed ceiling illuminated with soft starlight projections, mimicking the many galaxies represented within. Species of every conceivable shape and sensory orientation were gathered, drifting luminescent clusters, insectoid giants, telepathic energy beings, amphibious diplomats. And among them, seated silently at the edge of the chamber, was a single human. Ambassador Elira Tsal of the Virexian Accord floated to the center dais, her translucent wings vibrating softly as she addressed the chamber. "The human species," she began, voice echoing through the crystalline amplifiers, "is not inherently violent. They avoid war, preferring diplomacy and trade. Their history, while bloodied in its early epochs, has shown remarkable restraint in the last galactic century." Polite hums of approval rippled through the hall. Representatives from allied species nodded, tentacles brushing approval glyphs. Even the skeptical scrawl remained still, at least for now. Elira gestured toward the seated human, a lean older man in a formal Earth suit. His lapel bore only a single insignia, a silver pin shaped like a broken sword. "Commander Nathan Hale is here to offer final clarification, should the Council require it. But I submit that humanity's reputation as warmongers is, at best, antiquated, and at worst, malicious propaganda." The hall fell into a brief, murmuring silence. From the shadows of the second-tier balconies, a gravelly voice rasped out, "Permission to challenge the assertion." The speaker was High Speaker Veriktol of the Drazathai Dominion, a predator world civilization with a long history of war and conquest. His 6 eyes glimmered in the low light, focusing on the human. "Proceed," intoned Counselor Vorth. Veriktol slithered forward, claws clacking against the reflective floor. "Is it not true," he growled, "that humans annihilated 3 entire species within their own solar sector?" Gasps fluttered through the chamber. Even the neutral factions leaned forward. Elira's voice remained composed. "Those were internal conflicts, and the extinction of those species was not intentional. It was tragic circumstance." "Convenient language," Veriktol sneered. "They claim to avoid war, but their history is a chronicle of blood. Now they expand quietly, politely, yes, but is that not how predators stalk?" His challenge echoed, and then, for the first time, the human moved. Commander Hale rose slowly from his seat. He was not imposing. His shoulders slightly hunched, face weathered, hair streaked with gray. But there was something in his stance, a silence, a gravity that pulled all attention toward him. He stepped forward. No sound accompanied his stride, no fanfare, no entourage, just boots on the polished floor. "I wasn't going to speak," he said softly, his voice rough like unpolished iron. "But since war is the subject, I'll speak." A flicker of unease moved through the chamber. Veriktol turned to face him fully. "I'm not a diplomat. I was a soldier," Hale continued. 30 years in the Terran Interstellar Forces. Served in 12 theaters of war. Saw what most species here never have, what war really is." He stopped at the center, standing under the glow of the council lights. "You say we humans avoid war? You're damn right we do." The Drazathai growled in triumph. "Because we're good at it." The words dropped like gravity wells. Silence. Cold, heavy silence. Hale's eyes swept across the chamber. "You think avoiding war is weakness. It's not. It's wisdom bought in blood. We've seen what happens when we stop trying to talk. Entire continents burn. Cities vanish. Generations wiped out in hours." He turned toward Veriktol. "You want to talk about extinction? You don't even understand the word. When humans go to war, we don't do it for conquest. We do it when every other option has failed. And when we do, we finish it." A ripple of alarm moved through the council. Several translators began whispering urgently to their delegates. "We don't revel in war," Hale said, quieter now. "We fear it, because we've seen ourselves at our worst. That's why we choose peace. Not because we can't win wars, but because when we do, He exhaled slowly. No one walks away the same. Veriktol hissed. Is that a threat, human? Hale didn't blink. It's a memory. Suddenly, dozens of data screens lit up behind him. Council access security overridden. A chorus of voices rose in alarm. The screens displayed ancient footage. Grainy, raw and brutal. Human wars. The siege of Europa. The solar collapse conflict. Orbital debris fields glowing with the heat of nuclear fire. Ships tearing each other apart above burning planets. And one last clip. A lone human warship surrounded by an entire alien fleet. And surviving. Stop this broadcast. Veriktol roared. This is psychological warfare. No, Hale replied. This is history. Our history. Counselor Vorth raised a hand, silencing the chamber. Commander, are you saying the human inclination to peace is a choice? One that can be reversed? No, Hale said. It's a promise. One we made after our darkest hour. One we intend to keep. He turned away, then paused. But promises break. When pushed. A murmur of unease began to swell. Representatives recalibrated their understanding. The peaceful humans weren't pacifists. They were survivors. Warriors who had seen the abyss and chosen to turn away, until forced to return. Alira stepped forward, her voice calm but edged. The Drazathai requested testimony. They have it. Commander Hale has merely reminded us of the price of pushing humanity past its threshold. Vorth leaned forward, his voice slow. Council notes the record. The assertion that humans avoid war is sustained. But not from inability or cowardice, from knowledge. The motion was sealed. Veriktol scowled but said no more. Commander Hale returned to his seat. No applause followed. Only silence. Heavy, thoughtful silence. Because in that chamber of countless species, creatures of flame, ice, and mind, the most terrifying revelation had nothing to do with weapons. It was the human restraint, and how thin the line was between peace and extinction. The silence that followed. The room was silent. Not the ordinary kind of silence, not a pause for thought, not a respectful lull in a lecture. This silence had weight. It hung over the Galactic Council like a leaden shroud, thick with the implications of what had just happened. Ambassador Kevrin of the Serati still stood at the center of the great chamber, his 3 eyes wide and jaw tight, staring at the human who had dared to interrupt a 1,000-year tradition of nonviolence. The human veteran, still unnamed to most in the chamber, lowered himself back into his seat slowly, the echo of his voice still reverberating through the translator drones. Every race present had heard it in their own tongue. You misunderstand us. We don't avoid war because we fear it. We avoid it because we've mastered it. Those words didn't just stir fear. They awakened memory. Ancient memory. Collective memory. On the far end of the council hall, Elder Chronicler Zanor of the Histari flicked a tendril and summoned holographic records. His bioluminescent skin pulsed faintly, a color humans had come to associate with alarm. Without speaking, he cast a projection above the chamber. A war zone. Earth. Or what remained of it in the video. Craters, ruined cities, skies thick with ash. Machines that moved on tracks and legs, discharging bursts of energy that melted steel and vaporized stone. Soldiers who advanced not for conquest, but because surrender had never been an option. They fell in rows and kept coming. Year 2156 of the human calendar, Zanor said quietly. The siege of Oslo, against the Meraxi invasion. Total casualties, 400,000 in 2 weeks. Civilian centers evacuated, then voluntarily repopulate by resistance cells. He gestured again, the scene shifting. Now the Meraxi flagship, listing in orbit, burning in pieces. Human boarding craft had torn through its hull like insects eating a carcass from the inside. Zanor's voice darkened. They didn't negotiate. They didn't sue for peace. The humans didn't wait for surrender. They turned every remaining satellite into a weapon and dropped them from orbit. A younger counselor, barely into his first century, shivered. But they were outnumbered 10-1. Yes, Zanor whispered. They still won. Ambassador Kevrin attempted to recover the conversation. raising a clawed hand in protest. We're not here to rehash history. That was centuries ago. The Earth Coalition signed the Galactic Peace Accord. Their war era is over. The veteran stood again. No, it's sleeping. His voice was calm. Too calm. That frightened them more than rage. I've seen what war does. I've buried friends in dirt soaked with chemicals that would outlast their bones. I've walked through colonies where the only sound was the wind whistling through the cracks of burned-out homes. And I've led men and women back from the brink. Not to fight, but to stop fighting. He turned his gaze slowly across the chamber, locking eyes with species who had never known open combat, who lived under the illusion that peace was the galactic norm. But don't mistake restraint for weakness. You see humans as diplomats, explorers, scientists. You think we've moved beyond war. He stepped forward into the light. We are what comes after war. The council was fracturing. The diplomatic representatives had begun whispering furiously to one another, translator drones struggling to keep pace. Some, like the Silurians, were advocating for caution. We must not provoke the humans, one said in a high-pitched warble. Not when we still don't understand the full scope of what they survived. Others were furious. They've lied, barked Commander Trass of the Arvik Dominion. They present themselves as peace-loving while hiding monsters in their past. Correction, the veteran said from his seat. We've never lied. You just never asked. That silenced them again. A new voice joined the conversation. One that hadn't spoken in millennia. The Kothari delegate. No one had seen the Kothari move in a generation. The massive being, like a coiled serpent made of plated obsidian, uncoiled slowly from the shadows near the ceiling of the hall. It spoke in seismic vibrations that rattled the walls and trembled the bones. We remember the Red Sky years, the long war. We fought the humans once. Briefly. Thought them unworthy. Soft. There was a pause. We lost. The council shuddered. Not because of the admission, but because of who made it. The Kothari did not admit defeat. Ever. They adapt. The Kothari rumbled. They feel pain, and they evolve through it. Their species has weaponized suffering. The room pulsed with unease. Finally, the Supreme Counselor rose from her floating dais. An ancient being, her translucent skin shimmered with the colors of thought. Concern, curiosity, deep processing. Veteran, she said gently, her voice echoing across dimensions. Why now? Why speak of this now? The veteran was silent for a moment. Then he looked to the corner of the chamber, toward the young human ambassador who had invited him. She didn't know. Everyone turned to the ambassador. Her face was pale, hands trembling slightly. She was born in peace, he said. Educated in peace. Trained in diplomacy. She believes in harmony. She believes in the vision this council promises. The veteran's voice softened. I came to remind you that harmony requires vigilance. That peace is not our natural state. It's a choice. One that must be defended, not assumed. He turned back to the council. There's talk of aggression on the frontier. Raids. New powers testing your defenses. If they mistake humanity's silence for submission. His eyes narrowed. You will not survive the response. Behind the scenes, alarms had already begun to ring. Not weapons alarms, but intelligence networks. Strategic command boards. Whole data systems scrambling to reassess everything they thought they knew about Earth. Ships that had been classified as research cruisers were suddenly being re-examined. Why were they so heavily armored? Why did their engines operate on outdated but shield-resistant designs? Why were human colonies placed in regions of high tactical advantage? Why did Earth maintain a nearly silent moon station whose output didn't match its energy consumption? The Council had thought Earth was rebuilding for peace. But now it looked like Earth had been preparing to win a war no one had declared yet. In the long hallway outside the Grand Council, the human ambassador confronted the veteran. You could have let it lie, she said, voice tight. You could have stayed quiet. And let them forget? He asked. Let them believe their peace is natural? No, peace is a garden. It has to be tended. She looked angry. but not at him, at herself. They looked at me like I was a liar. He nodded gently. Because you didn't know the truth. But now you do. She swallowed. How do I carry this? The veteran placed a hand on her shoulder. His grip was firm but not unkind. You carry it like we always have. Not with pride. Not with shame. But with responsibility. Back in the chamber, the council was already in emergency session. Races who had long scoffed at Earth's quaint militaries were now reconsidering their treaties. Some spoke of containment, others of strategic alignment. But one phrase kept returning to the forefront, spoken by the Kothari, whispered in ancient tones. They are not warriors, they are survivors. And survivors never stop fighting. A memory like gunpowder. The chamber of the Galactic Peace Accord sat in a stunned, almost reverent silence. What had once been a casual diplomatic presentation on human pacifism had now turned into something else entirely. The human veteran, Major Elias Wren, had risen and spoken, his words slicing through presumptions like blades through silk. Counselor Threx of the Ashari Alliance sat motionless, his translucent skin pulsing with dim blue light, an involuntary sign of anxiety in his species. The holographic panels that lined the oval chamber flickered with replays of Earth's wars, displayed now not as curiosities of a violent species, but as context, as warning. Wren remained standing. I won't lie, he said, voice low but carrying. Humans do avoid war, not because we're weak, not because we're enlightened, but because we know what we're capable of when we stop avoiding it. He glanced across the room, where ambassadors from over 40 civilizations now watched him with something approaching fear. You want to know what makes a human dangerous? He asked, stepping away from the Earth delegation bench. It's not the technology. It's not the military strategy. It's the memory. He paused. War lives in our bones. It's not a legacy. It's a shadow we carry. There was a silence so dense it almost had mass. Counselor Threx leaned forward, his voice an elegant ripple. Major Wren, if you claim humans carry such dark legacies, why has your species advocated peace so insistently in these talks? Wren turned to him, eyes steady. Because we want you to live. He tapped the console embedded into the table. A hologram expanded into the air. An ancient battlefield, grainy and flickering. World War I, Earth year 1916. Trenches, chemical clouds, corpses. Primitive by galactic standards. Barbaric. That was the first time machines fought for us on a large scale, Wren explained. We thought it was the war to end all wars. It wasn't. With another gesture, the footage shifted. Earth, 1945. Mushroom clouds bloomed over Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This was the last time we dropped nuclear weapons in war. We swore never again. That oath held. Barely. The chamber felt colder now. Even the Thalkar, whose species consumed radiation as food, recoiled slightly from the sight of a human invention meant only for annihilation. But war didn't stop. It just changed shape. More images followed. Jungle guerrilla warfare. Cold War standoffs. Desert conflicts. Cyber attacks. Orbit-to-orbit missile exchanges. A long thread of history wrapped in blood, ash, and grief. We studied it. We recorded it. We buried it in memorials, etched it into stone, wrote it into textbooks. We never forget, because forgetting would mean we might repeat it. Counselor Velt of the Kalari Confederacy, who had until recently mocked humanity's emotional volatility, finally spoke. You revere your pain. No, Wren said quietly. We remember our pain. That's the difference between a predator and a soldier. He paused, fingers briefly tightening at his side. The subtle tremble in his hand was noticed only by a few. Do you know why I joined the military? Wren continued, shifting tone. Not because I was raised on patriotism. Not because I wanted glory. I joined because a drone strike hit my neighborhood when I was 8. Gasps rippled across the chamber. It was an internal conflict. Misfire. Wrong coordinates. My father died instantly. My sister 2 weeks later in the ICU. I saw them both. I still do. Silence. I grew up hating war. I trained to end it. And I learned that humans, when pushed, when truly broken, don't just fight. We transform. Pain doesn't weaken us. It hardens us, sharpens us, until we're the kind of weapon no one sees coming. Ren's eyes lifted to meet the collective gaze of the galaxy's most powerful races. You invited us to this council to determine our role in the galactic order, he said, voice now like distant thunder. Some of you assumed we were soft. Others thought we were unpredictable. A few hoped to use us. He stepped forward, shoulders squared, a soldier once more. I am not here to offer threats. I am here to offer perspective. Humanity avoids war because the next one we fight might be the last, for everyone. From his satchel, he retrieved a small, rectangular object, an old Earth artifact. A soldier's medal, dull with age but still gleaming faintly. This medal, he said, holding it up, was given to me after Operation Halberd, a planetary evacuation under orbital fire. I lost 83 men in 1 hour. The youngest was 19. He set the medal down on the table. Honor, bravery, sacrifice. That's what the award says. But what I remember is the silence after the battle. No music, no cheering, just the quiet. Counselor Veltarn, a crystalline being whose species lived in a warless harmony for centuries, tilted their head. Why did you bring it? To remind myself that peace isn't something you win. It's something you carry. The words hung in the air, echoing with a weight no technology could replicate. One of the younger delegates, a reptilian scholar from the Sorlian Enclave, dared to speak. Major, if your species holds such capacity for destruction, what happens when someone makes you fight? Ren looked at him evenly, then finally smiled, but it wasn't warm. They don't make us fight, he said. They unleash us. Across the galaxy, transmission feeds began to pick up on Earth's cultural databases, holovids, stories, images. The council had started browsing them in the weeks before, but now, they looked again with new eyes. They saw human films not as entertainment, but as warnings. They saw military parades not as displays of pride, but of restraint. They read stories like the Iliad, All Quiet on the Western Front, and the Forever War, and understood them not as fiction, but as reflections of the human soul. One by one, diplomatic envoys quietly deleted the pre-written suggestions that humans should be disarmed, integrated, or contained. As the session recessed, Counselor Threx walked slowly beside Ren. You spoke not like a soldier, Threx said, but like a historian. Ren gave a short laugh. History's just war written in ink. And do you believe your species has learned enough to avoid it? Ren didn't answer immediately. He glanced at the stars beyond the chamber's glass dome. Maybe, he said, but if we haven't. He looked at Threx, voice lowering like a blade drawn from its sheath. You'll know it first. The ones who remember. The council chamber was quiet, the kind of silence that could crush lungs and sharpen fear. Ambassador Ryrak's silvery scales dulled beneath the chamber's light as if the presence of the human veteran had bled color from the air itself. The human stood alone before the collected representatives of the Galactic Accord, an ancient alliance of civilizations spanning 1,000 worlds. Behind her, Earth's delegation remained seated, silent, respectful. They knew what was about to come. This was her battlefield now. She wasn't tall by Kalari standards. She didn't glow like the Ilari or shimmer with psionic light like the Zelvari. Her skin was wrinkled, weathered. Her left arm was synthetic from the elbow down. Her spine, though straight, carried the burden of wars no one here had ever known. Her name was Colonel Avery Stroud. She didn't begin with a greeting. She didn't need to. Her voice, when it came, was gravel wrapped in iron. You misunderstand humanity, she said. And that's not your fault. We let you. We wanted peace. We showed restraint, diplomacy, compassion. We tried to be the species we hoped to become. A projection blinked to life behind her. A timeline of Earth's history. Rapid flashes of war, peace, progress and atrocity. But we are not what you think we are. Not entirely. Pause. We are not afraid of war. We remember it. She walked forward, slow and deliberate. You talk of us like children stumbling into space. You say we avoid war, as though it's weakness. As if we don't have the will, the stomach, the capacity. You're wrong. The Alari delegate, shimmering in his translucent grace, dared to speak. You imply threat where diplomacy stands, human. Do you now claim that your people embrace conflict? Avery turned to him. Her eyes didn't blink. I've watched a platoon hold a trench for 9 days under orbital fire. I've seen civilians dig through rubble with bleeding hands to pull out strangers. I've witnessed medics fight to save lives of enemy soldiers because their oath mattered more than vengeance. She took another step. Do we embrace war? No. We endure it. And when we must, we finish it. Images shifted again behind her. Not of Earth's history now, but of battles from the outer rings. Skirmishes against pirate enclaves, defense lines against fringe empires, evacuation efforts under fire during the Ark-Eris plague. Then came one final image. A world with no name. Its atmosphere burned away. Craters spread across continents. Silent. Lifeless. Avery looked at the delegates, her voice now hollow and cold. This is what we did when someone thought humans were too soft to fight back. The chamber trembled, not from sound, but from understanding. It was the Zelvari who broke the silence, their voice telepathic and precise. We sensed no psychic fury in your people, no violent resonance. Avery turned to them. Because we don't scream when we fight. We calculate, we remember, and we learn faster than any species you've ever encountered. She lifted her artificial arm and peeled back the synthetic skin, exposing black titanium bone reinforced with carbon lattice and fusion conduits. Every scar we earn, we build upon. You look at us and see individuals. You don't understand, we don't fight alone. Every soldier carries 1,000,000 ghosts with them. Every battle we survive adds to the next. We don't just evolve biologically, we evolve tactically. A silence fell again. The younger races, new to the accord, stared in awe. The elder ones shifted in their seats. One of them, the Kaith Dominion's warspeaker, grunted. Then what do you want, human? To threaten the galaxy into submission. Avery's face tightened. No, she said softly. We want peace. That's all we've ever wanted. But we've learned peace doesn't last unless you make others understand the cost of shattering it. She glanced around the room. You called this assembly to discuss Earth's expansion. You were worried, thought we were moving too quickly, colonizing too far. You feared we'd bring war to your borders. She let the weight of that statement hang. But here's the truth, she said. We're not expanding to conquer. We're expanding because we can't afford not to. We've lived on a fragile world too long to bet our future on a single system. Her eyes met each delegate in turn. But know this, if war ever comes to our doorstep again, we will not be unprepared. We won't respond with a warning. We won't argue. We will end it, decisively and completely. She turned her arm slightly. A quiet hum of internal power echoed in the chamber. That's not a threat. That's a veteran's memory. Ryrak, the original accuser, shifted nervously. You speak of destruction so casually. Do you not regret it? Avery's eyes softened, but her voice did not. Every life lost haunts us. Every decision made costs us something. That's the difference. We carry our wars. We don't erase them from history. We don't bury them in silence. We remember, always. She stepped back and nodded toward the projection. It shifted to show the Earth flag beside the Galactic Accord's emblem. We came here because we believe in something greater than dominance. We believe in unity, in survival, but we will never lie to you about what we are. She turned away from the council. For a moment it seemed like she was finished. But just as she reached her seat, she paused. Without turning back, she said, You want to know why we avoid war? It's not fear. It's respect. Because we're the only species in this room who knows exactly how far we can go. 3 days later, the council's vote came swiftly. Not only was Earth's expansion ratified, but a new clause was added to the accord, the Stroud Resolution. It read, "Should any world provoke war against a peace-offering species, let it be remembered that even silence can carry the memory of thunder, and that some wars, when awakened, do not end, they echo." In the quiet aftermath of the vote, many ambassadors returned to their ships with heavy thoughts. Some were afraid, some were ashamed, but all of them, every last one, would remember the day the human veteran stood up, and the silence that followed her words.